You can post it.
Hey.
There we go. All right. Welcome everyone to our June OSRBC Authors Chat. We're so excited you could join us tonight for the return of our special guest. She is a writer of contemporary and paranormal romance, as well as historical and horror fiction. We have been so fortunate to be able to spend June reading her anthology, For the Girls, a Sapphic Contemporary Romance Collection. Everyone, may I present RL Merrill? Thank you for joining us, Ro.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yes. If we do get anyone else coming in partway through, we have a small group. So, if any, we'll probably try to do questions at the end versus through the chat this year. But we will get going. So, to start off, Charity Anthology, can you tell us a bit about how you got involved with these?
So, I have done a variety of charity anthologies. Um, I joined Zio Axelrod for the Love Is All anthology, I believe the second year. And this year we just put out number 8, and I only missed one, I think, along the way. So some of the stories that are in For the Girls were actually came from those. But what I decided was earlier this year, as the world being what it is, the challenges and difficulties with protecting reproductive rights. I wanted to do something. I already volunteer for Planned Parenthood. And so I decided, well, what if I take all these short stories and put them together and then just donate the proceeds to Planned Parenthood? So I believe I've been able to donate almost $100 just from sales so far, and it's only been live for a short amount of time. Um, and it's been, it's good. I love being a part of charity anthologies with other people, but having my own collection was very special. And the cover designer was very much behind the project, and so she donated the cover. Um, and I have since done a second collection, which will be live in October. And I got print versions for this event that I just did this past weekend, and they're adorable. And so yeah, so there will be more of these collections in the future.
Excellent.
What are some challenges specific to writing short stories?
You know, most of the time when I'm writing a short story, I don't struggle with it. I know some people are like, no, I can only write long pieces, and no, I can only write, short pieces. Um, I think somewhere along the way, I just kind of figured out what can fit in a smaller package, what elements of the story to focus on. Um, for example, I wrote a story for the To LA with Love anthology, which just came out in June, and it's all the proceeds go to help the Los Angeles libraries. And I started writing the story, and I was going to do an alternate point of view between his and hers. And I got through one chapter of one POV, and I went, this can only be 10,000 words. I'm not even going to get to like
No brain hopping.
them meeting, you know? So I ended up having to make it only one character's point of view. And I think it works. In this particular case, I think it worked well for the story. Um, but I think just the challenge would be if you're somebody who writes very high heat and I'm not. I'm kind of in the middle, I think. But if you want there to be physical intimacy on the page, there's a lot of work that you have to do before you get to that point, unless it's straight erotica. But for a contemporary or paranormal romance, um, really the challenge is how to build that intimacy so that you still have time within your word count limit to have things get to the good part.
For sure. What is the best part of connecting your short stories and novellas to your full-length novels? We picked up on the connections between Pinups and Puppies, Once Upon a Goth Dog Solstice, and Girls Just Want to Have Goats.
Yeah, yeah. Um, for some reason, I have not yet written a full-length sapphic book. In fact, Girls Just Want to Have Goats before times. I had planned to make a full-length novel, but it just kept getting put aside because I had other commitments. I absolutely love writing series, and I have done that with these books. Because it's a found family thing, right? Like you want to bring all these people together, and then when you bring somebody into the fold, and then you're like, but I really like this character. How do I give them a story? Um, and I've done the same thing with my Boulder Breed Studios series that's set up in Portland. Um, you had the first book, I Want More, and then Love and Pride, which both of those were also in the Love is All anthologies over the years. And I have sent other bands to the studios to record with them. I there's the
Grandpa's
connection.
boys.
What's that?
Grandpa's boys.
Yes, yes, Grandpa Boyfriend. Yeah, yeah, Feuds and Interludes takes place there, and then also the novella that will be in for the Witches, which is the second collection. That band takes a trip up to Boulder Breed, and I have a bit of a story started about the guys from Hush, from the Summer of Hush series, Hush going up there to record. So, yeah, it's fun to intermingle characters in all kinds of scenarios.
The couple from Teacher went up there too, weren't they? Weren't they in the feuds and interludes?
Yes, yes, yeah. Blackened
Those are,
because Danny,
yeah.
everybody loves Danny, and
I couldn't remember the band name, but
yeah,
them.
Blackened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Blackened was up there, and Danny and Jesse ended up in the Forces of Nature books with, Reese and Toby and
That's why I was
Ethan and
telling them. So,
Arthur.
so this, and this are all connected, and this are
Yeah,
connected. And
yeah. So someday there will be a big giant universe. So like when I get put on Netflix or network TV with these stories, they'll
the
have all
Rover.
these stories, all these characters. Mwahaha.
So speaking of Once Upon a Goth Dog Solstice and Girls Just Want to Have Goats, how do you
Yeah.
come up with your short story titles?
Well, Goth Dog came because it was a shared world situation where all of the titles of the books had to be once upon a. And the holiday that I chose, because they all had to be a holiday, I chose to do it on the solstice. And I'm like, okay, well, once upon a what solstice? Once upon a, and then it was like, well, of course, the rescue, because the rescue is kind of factors into the story quite a bit. Um, and Girls Just Want to Have Goats. Well, I struggled with that because just as Feuds and Interludes was Grandpa Boyfriend was the working title for a long time. Lesbian Goat Farmer was the working title for Girls Just Want to Have Goats. And I was really struggling with it. At one point, I was calling it girls, goats, and good lovin'. And my husband's like, no, that sounds like farm animal. Like that's bad. I went, well, but that's not what so I every once in a while I have a ooh, that would be a great title. And then other times and I just spend hours and hours thinking of it, you know. Feuds and Interludes, I love that title. Like that came fairly quick, but Earthquake Ethan, all those like the those titles came great because, well, all I needed was a force of nature to pair up. But um, sometimes it's really hard. It's hard for me to come up with names. I don't always because I want them to be catchy. I love it when people have catchy titles, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how to make this one work. So,
Right. Shifting gears a little bit, a little birdie told us that we should ask about all your various research topics and search histories.
Funny you should say that. While I am currently in New Orleans and I'm actually working on plotting a new project. And wow, I've had to do some interesting ones. Plus, I'm currently writing the third book in my Carnival series. And if you read book two, this is a little bit of a spoiler. If you read book two, which was You Can Save Me, you'll know that one of the characters, um, towards the end of the story, runs afoul of a serial killer. Does not die, but there are injuries. So, book three is about this character. And given the wounds that he had, I had to do research as to what is the likelihood of being able to use, I don't know, laser treatments on the scars. Um, and that led me to how do like plastic surgeons, when they have people who have facial wounds, like how do they do it? Because I've had stitches before, and honestly, they come out like really funky. The scars are terrible. But then I know people who have had incisions on their faces, and you can hardly tell. So that sent me down a rabbit hole of looking at sites for different dermatology and plastic surgeons, and I accidentally hit one that was a whole page of thumbnails of actual plastic surgeries in progress with like pieces of faces open. And I was like, that's too far. I'm not watching that. I mean, I love gory movies.
Fair.
Like I love horror movies, but seeing it in real
That's
life
not
was
real
like,
life.
no, 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 no. I don't need to see the pit in my research. Like they've done some pretty graphic scenes in that show. So yeah, but my search history absolutely has some bizarre things, not as much as some other people I know. There's an awful lot of music, research that I do. I have read a lot of memoirs. In fact, for Feuds and Interludes, I read Patty Boyd's memoir. She was George Harrison's wife who fell in love with Eric Clapton and then left George for Eric. And then they had a tumultuous It was a very interesting story. Yeah. So, yeah, my research takes me all over the place.
Um, what is the difference, if anything, in the writing process between writing a full-length novel and writing a novella or short story?
Well, we talked about it a little bit. I guess the part of the difference is me because number one, I don't always plot. Um, for the third Carnival book, I literally sat down and was like, I think I know where the story is going, and I've written more than half of it. And I had to have a coaching call with the beloved Jen Graybill this past week because I'm like, I have written myself into
Help.
a corner. Um, so some of it is, do I plot? Do I not plot? And then sometimes, again, like I said before, it's knowing how big of a story you can have. How many characters can you bring in? I do tend to like to go into backstory, and with a short story, you don't have time for that. Um, I use short stories to experiment. Like, for example, I've written a couple of short stories in present tense, which for a long time I could not stand present tense. I couldn't stand reading it. I was because not everybody can pull it off. And if you are reading it intensely and you start to see where they don't keep the tense like correct the whole way through, then I'm tossed out of the story. And I'll reread something 5 times ago. They, how, what? And so, but I've done, well, it was in that collection. Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire. That was the first time that I wrote a present tense story. And it took me a while to go back over and make sure that I got the tenses okay. And thankfully, my editor is good at catching that stuff. Um, I have, what else have I done with short stories? Horror. I've written horror short stories because, again, I feel confident that I can make something make sense and build the suspense on a short piece. But I have yet to tackle a full length horror novel. So, yeah, it's experimenting, it's learning, it's a challenge. And yeah, it really depends on whether or not I am plotting.
Sure. How has the transition to full-time writing been? Has there been anything that surprised you? Because now you're doing this full-time, which is exciting.
Yeah,
That
it
one word
is.
for it.
It is if that's what I was doing. At the time that I quit teaching, almost immediately my mother-in-law was diagnosed with a second round of cancer. So then we had about 6 months of treatment where I was taking her to her treatments. Then my mother has been diagnosed with dementia. So I am taking care of her, and my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So I'm trying to help him so that he can take care of himself. Um, Spoiler alert, if you are a parent, just because your kids go off to college and or graduate from college, it doesn't mean that they don't need you as much because my kids have both needed a lot over the past 2 years. So I get in trouble with my therapist. Yes, I'm seeing a therapist. That's how well things are going. I My therapist gets mad at me because I frequently say, "Well, I'm not working," and she's like, "Stop it! You are working. You are an author, and you are caring for all these people. So give yourself some grace." So I'm trying to give myself grace. Whereas I thought I would have time to do all of the learning and all of the things to build my business side, I'm barely having enough time to write like I would like to. So that's how it's going because life decided you thought you were going to do this full time.
Yeah. And then just again, I don't want us like to rush us. So I think we'll like start thinking about wrapping up. But kind of something we were talking about over the month that we thought was maybe important to ask was our perception is that stories get more visibility in the romance genre compared to FF and other queer stories.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts on, I'm sure you do, but any thoughts on, why I'm sure it actually is the case, not just a perception, but
It is. I mean, I have not actually counted up all of the, but you can tell just from looking at releases that there are more releases that are MM. There are, mm, most of the people that I know that write Sapphic stories will say that their sales are less than their sales for MM stories. Um, However, like there's every once in a while there's something that stands out. Like we were at GRL 2 years ago, I think, and Layla Rain and I were talking, and she came running over to me during the signing, and she's like, "I've sold more copies of my FF books than anything else." So sometimes you go to events and there's 20 people that write MM and one or two that write Sapphic. And so when people are looking for that, then it's great. In fact, at the signing this weekend, unfortunately, I didn't catch her, but one of the young women, I think she was helping somebody else, but she came running up to my table and she's like, "Is that Sapphic? Oh, I'll be back." And then the day was gone. So she obviously got distracted. But I've had people come specifically at Book Lovers Con. I had a reader come up to me and say, "Oh, somebody sent me to you because they said you have Sapphic books." So the people who want them are very much want
will
them.
find them.
But people can read what they want to read. They can love what they want to love. I think as women, um, there are a lot of women that like to read MM for whatever reason. And I think some of those women are not as comfortable with FF because it's not what sexually, satisfies them, or there's a little bit of internalized homophobia that that comes out of that. And so I don't know. I think there's more people who are writing Sapphic. There's a lot more YA Sapphic. And so I think you're going to see as Gen Zers and whatever the Gen Alpha, is that what we're calling the little
Yeah,
ones?
I think
I
I
so.
think
think that's what's next.
Yeah, I think as those kids cycle their way up to their 20s and their, 30s and whatnot, they're going to demand more variety in their queer books, because they want to see themselves. So I have hope, just like for the longest time, MM was very rare to find as well. And now it's kind of become more just like in the queer movement as it is, the um, cis gay men kind of were the ones that stood out in they were kind of the main face of the gay liberation movement, even though other people were behind the scenes being the ones doing the work and taking care of people. So I think in that sense, that's just how it's kind of progressed. And so I'm hoping that as we go forward, we will see more and more and more. I certainly know people are asking for it, and the response when I have written it has been very positive. It's just I have to know that it sells a little bit less. So,
Yeah, for sure. And then to just kind of wrap up, what's on your TBR right now that you're really excited about?
oh God, on my TBR. Um, well, I picked up a book, which actually I should know better because I can't read print books, but I went into the William Faulkner bookshop here in the French Quarter and was like, books. There was one that was called Bring Me the Head of Quentin Tarantino. How's that for a title? And it's short stories. So I was like, well, I could probably do magnifying glass and read, a short story at a time. But I also picked up a book about being that this is the last day of Pride, and it's been quite an emotional Pride for me. Um, there was a particularly ugly incident that happened here in New Orleans where a gay nightclub was burned to the ground and 30 plus people lost their lives, and nobody talks about it. Um, we talk about Pulse, we talk about, but because it happened during an era when nobody cared about what happened to gay people, um, it's not as talked about. And so I picked up a whole book about it, and I will somehow find a way to read it, even if I have to, 10 minutes a day. I've also, God, I've got so many. Um, Kim Fielding and J. Scott Coatsworth just put out a short story, or not a short story, a novella together. Um, I found, I didn't know this, but K.A. American and L.A. Witt wrote a book together called The Werewolves of Chernobyl. And I was like, I've never heard of this book. So, yes, I will be reading that. What else do I
My
have?
brain's blipping on that, but I'm not sure what it's blipping about.
Yeah. Oh, and then I host a book club in the Bay Area at the Books Inc. in Alameda. And our book for July is Sorry Bro by Talene Voskuni. She is a Bay Area author. She's Armenian. And so the story, it's a Sapphic romance set in the Armenian community. And I'm like halfway through it and I think it's fabulous. So that's my TBR.
Yeah, lots of things to look forward to then and check out. It's
Yeah,
so good.
very, very wide range of
Yes,
stuff.
that's good. Variety's the spice of life.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, so I think that's what we had for tonight, basically. So sorry everyone for the time constraint once we get this posted. But I do want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ro, for being here with us tonight. This anthology was great. We had such a good time reading it together this month. And obviously, the message is more important than ever right now. So it was a real treat. And then really quickly before we go, just a little few housekeeping items. We are going to be reading Sophie Jordan's A Fire in the Sky in July as our next read along. That's going to start July 7th. We will be focusing on parts 1 and 2. Our author chat with Sophie will be July 28th at 9 p.m. And the complete schedule will be going up on our social media at some point. So, just so everyone knows if they want to join for that. And again, thank you for being here. This was so fun. Always
Thanks
love
for
talking
having
to
me
you.
and
Of
thanks for
course,
reading my little
anytime.
stories. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it. All right. Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night.